I've received a bunch of emails recently saying, hey, David, you should really get Dylan Ratigan on your program. He actually has been on our show, and that is this week's classic interview. Dylan Ratigan joined me. We talked about taking back control over our economic and financial systems. This was an interesting conversation because this was before, back in March of 2012, before discussions of economic inequality and disparities became part of the national conversation, and I spoke about it with Dylan Ratigan back in March of 2012. Let's take a look at that interview. Dylan Ratigan's with us. He's host of The Dylan Ratigan Show on MSNBC and also author of this book, Greedy Bastards. Really great to talk to you, Dylan.
Listen, thanks for giving me some time with you.
Question number one, I guess, is I get so many emails from people saying, you know, there's so many books written about what's going on economically. There's so much discussion on real news, on fake news, on Fox News, wherever it is that fits in about this stuff. But fundamentally, the system is just rigged, so the average middle class or lower middle class person both will never really be able to influence elections successfully, and number two, will never really get what they consider a fair shake in the economic system. Now, that could be interpreted a number of ways. You've been covering this stuff for years. Is that an accurate assessment? Do you agree with that?
No, I completely disagree with that. I particularly object to the use of the word never. I think that it is the way I would describe what's going on to you is this. I would say that there is an extraordinary awakening happening in communities across America where people are realizing that when it comes to things like wanting people to be healthier in their community by hot-spotting the people who are sick and helping them be healthy, improving their schools, reducing violence in their communities, reducing the shooting rates, and then advocating around things like more competitive primaries, more transparency in their communities. As you see individuals in communities around America already doing these things, David, what you realize is that there is one group of people who's locked in the old way, which I will call sleepwalking or being asleep, right? And the defining characteristics of that are simply the belief that you know and the desire to fight for what you know. So the Democrats, the Republicans, the Occupier, everybody wants a fight, right? I know and I want to fight. But what you're seeing with the other group of people, which is in the explosive, that's where the explosive growth is in terms of humans right now, is what I would call awake. And somebody who's awake actually realizes that they don't know. And that is the single most profound event for an individual in their entire life. What we have to realize is that we don't need to fight. What we need to do is realize that we don't know and apply the modern problem solving, unprecedented modern problem solving that can deliver the things that we want in a way that doesn't necessarily require a grand battle with New York and Washington, and New York and Washington want to have that fight. The rest of America doesn't.
How do you impose that paradigm shift onto the people that have been elected and, under the current system of campaign finance, right? I mean, how do you, that sounds great, and it's great that more and more people are aware of that. How do you actually get the people who got into power under the current system to pay attention?
Let's look at healthcare as an example. So right now we know it is a statistical fact that in any given healthcare community, so it's all of America, a given labor union, a given city, a given the healthcare plan here at NBC where I work with Comcast as the owner, whatever your health insurance plan may be, okay, private, public, I don't care. 5% of the people using that plan are spending 50% of the money. And so there are all these individuals, there's a union in Minneapolis, a doctor in New Jersey, a group in Southern California, are making a business and a business model out of identifying who that 5% are and then dedicating daily resources to help them take their medicine, to help them get exercise, to make sure that they eat well, to effectively improve their health, which is creating 50% reductions in the cost of health care. I don't need the government to do that. The doctor in New Jersey, the health insurance operator in Atlantic City, the union chief in Minneapolis, the entrepreneur in Southern California doesn't need the federal government to organize within a localized healthcare network that's too expensive and is not providing good service to adopt this new method of problem solving. I could give you examples like that all afternoon. And my point in those anecdotes is not to say that you should do that or one of those things. It's to say that there are ways to improve health, improve learning, improve community health in where you live right now that as we do that, we'll naturally build a second set of maps that will naturally depower the corrupt network that currently actually accumulates power when we choose to fight with it.
I'm buying into this idea of the second set of maps. My question when you look at that is, what will be the biggest obstacles, right? What people and what mechanisms are going to be what gets in the way, probably because they have a vested interest in preventing that from happening?
We have two choices, basically, with every problem, which is to focus on all the reasons why we can't do it and who's going to prevent doing it and how corrupt our current system is to ensure that they can prevent that from happening, which is what my book is about. It's what my show has been about. It's what's going on. The new information, though, that's being shown to us as we chronicle this awakening, I travel the country meeting and seeing all these people all over the country all the time who are solving these types of problems. And as we transition to chronicle this awakening and understand its defining characteristics and do more of that, the relevancy of the race to the bottom that is an atrocity between these two political parties and the arrogance of their belief in that they know and their incredible desire to fight and the incredible desire to fight from all the political organizations that support both political parties, all of which are counter to modern problem solving if you're awake, which is that you don't know, and if you don't know, it's harder to have a fight, that networks have answers because they do, and that the higher the level of the visibility and integrity and choice on your network, the stronger the network's answers will be to help you. And the fact that we're not advocating around things knowing that, like transparency, competition, and one set of rules, which make networks way more effective when we know that the networks are where the answers live, whether it's our individual personal networks in our families or our digital networks or our national political networks, all of them suffer from a tremendous degree of opacity and lack of integrity. There's basically no transparency, very little competition, and two sets of rules. And as long as you have that condition, no transparency, limited or no competition or rigged games, and two sets of rules, you're never going to make good decisions. But the problem is your instinct is to fight that, which is a natural and understandable instinct, one that I wasted 3 years of my life doing on MSNBC, but it's wrong.
Well, let me ask you about that. And again, the book is Greedy Bastards. We're speaking with Dylan Ratigan. In the last minute or so we have left here, I remember when I was in high school and you were on CNBC, and then you were global managing editor at Bloomberg LP. And there was a certain point, and correct me if I'm wrong, where it was almost like you had an awakening, to use your term. And I don't know if it was the infamous 2-minute rant or what it was, but has your perspective on covering a lot of financial issues has changed? Were your views the same all along and you just said, I'm not going to do the pretend thing anymore, I'm going to speak for real?
No,
or were you actually awakened?
I was actually awakened, but also I was lied to effectively. So there's two things. The revelation of the lie in the early parts of my career is what precipitated my original awakening, which was my need to depart from that particular form of journalism. And then there have been subsequent awakenings, as I previously thought, that simply using the political apparatus to fight for what I thought I knew. And I can explain to you very precisely, I did it in my book, why it is that things are screwed up, particularly in the banking sector. But still, even in the face of all the things that I do know about all these things to write these books and do this stuff, I still actually know that I don't know, and know that I have got to continue the quest forward to try to solve the fundamental problems that we deal with. And the lie, going back to your question, I was of the belief that capitalism and the interaction in the financial markets was a very valuable exercise by virtue of the retained risk of the investors, that there's capital requirements, that you don't make a decision unless you have you're going to lose money if you make it wrong. And as a result, that creates a discipline that helps money move towards the best ideas because the degree of selectivity among the investors is high. When it was proven over the course of the past decade that is not, in fact, the intent or structure or functionality of our financial markets, that it is without any capital, that it is a place using basically credit insurance fraud from a small number of banks to corrupt the global financial system at the expense of all the other banks, all the other investors, and every other person on earth, which is what we have. That was an impossible place for me to continue to pretend that picking stocks mattered when you had a group of 20 people in the back that were sucking hundreds of trillions of dollars out of the world's economies at the expense of investment flows into everything from infrastructure to health to education to entrepreneurship and innovation. And I believe the intention of investment is to drive capital towards things that are valuable for society, not to figure out how to manipulate rulemaking in order to steal it, which is what the current financial system represents.
The Dylan Ratigan Show on MSNBC. The book is Greedy Bastards. Congratulations on the book, and keep up the great work, Dylan. Good to talk to you.
No, it's a real pleasure. Thank you for giving me the chance to opine in such a fashion.